Oh, here we go. Oh my God. Just as I thought this would be the night which everything would go according to plan, and I forget that I'm even doing a live stream. So here I am. I'm not too late. I'm 10 minutes late this time, which is better than what? How long was it the first time I went live that I forgot? A while. Hey, Sammy. Hello. So who else is here? We've got Applehead. Good to see you back. Tim. I reckon Floyd is quietly saying a few colourful words right now. Live stream tech problems are so very common. Would be stressful for me right now. Hello, Tim. No technical problems this time, but just my own memory. So yeah. Oh well. 2 weeks from now, maybe it'll go according to plan. But I'll be in Queensland in 2 weeks, so I don't even know how I'm going to do that. In fact, let me see where I'm going to be in 2 weeks. Friday 1 week from now, I'm going to be on a train. Friday 2 weeks from now, I'll be in Mount Isa. So if I can get a decent enough internet connection to stream in Mount Isa, then cool. And we've got Mick Eccles right up the back. G'day, Mick, if you're still around. Lego Train Videos, g'day. Tony Hawkins, hello. Kate Williams, hello. We've got Lukey Mac joining us as well. G'day, Lukey Mac. So, am I driving up to Mount Isa? Nope, not driving up to Mount Isa. Maybe I'll do that one day, but that'd be quite the drive. I'm taking the train to Mount Isa. I'm embarking not tomorrow, Sunday. G'day, Mick. Yeah, so I'm embarking Sunday to go to Queensland for 3 weeks. I've organised myself a rail holiday, which is pretty cool. And so it's rail themed, although I'm going on, my transport isn't exclusive to rail. It's just mostly rail. So I'm flying up to Brisbane. I've got a flight booked for like 7 a.m. Sunday morning. It's going to be fun getting to the airport in time for that. And then I will get to Brisbane and stay a few days in Brisbane, then head to Charleville by train, come back by bus, and then I will be, I don't think, do I stay in Brisbane or do I? Oh yeah, so I come back from Charleville to Brisbane on the bus, and then literally like 3-4 hours later, I get on the train to go to Cairns. And funny story about my Cairns train trip. I know it hasn't happened yet, but here's the story anyway. So it's about a week ago, maybe a bit less, say 4 or 5 days ago, I finally got around to, booking all of my actual train tickets and stuff. And I went to book the one to Cairns, and I was on the phone to Queensland Rail and said, yeah, Brisbane to Cairns, please. And they said, oh, when were you wanting to go? I said, Friday, 5th of July. And they said, actually, that train is booked out completely. They said it's the school holidays, everyone wants to go up the coast, and the train is booked out for the next week or so after that. And I was like, crap, that was not in my plan. I thought I could just book a ticket. And the Cairns train, to answer your question, Nick, is a modern one, but I'll be going on some slightly old school ones as well. The Cairns one is, yes, fairly modern. Anyway, I looked at restructuring my trip and perhaps going to Cairns a bit later in my trip. But it wasn't really going to work out. Like, I'd have a lot more time in Brisbane itself, but I'd lose time in towns like Mount Isa, Charleville, etc. And so I was like, I'd lose time in Cairns as well, and it'd be like, I don't really want to do that. And so I looked at, well, okay, what's the alternative? The alternative was I get a coach from Brisbane to Cairns. It was going to take slightly longer because the train can travel at up to 160 k's an hour. And it's a tilting train. It tilts slightly when it's going around corners, so it can take the corners at a higher speed than a normal train. So that's cool. And I think the track itself is banked a little bit as well. So double tilt. Anyway, thought, okay, well, I don't have an option. The train's booked out. Whatever. I'll deal with the coach. And then so I booked for the coach and everything, but the guy on the phone at Queensland Rail, he said, look, there's a chance that somebody might cancel. In fact, there's a good chance somebody will cancel, but there's no way to tell when somebody is going to cancel. And so he said, check back online or ring back fairly often, like at least once a day, and just check, and maybe if you're lucky you'll snag a seat when someone cancels. So I thought, all right, and I made sure to Greyhound Coaches was the operator who I was going to go on to get up to Cairns, and yeah, made sure to book a seat that was refundable. In the event that I would get a seat, but I also wanted to secure my seat on the bus, so the bus didn't book out as well, and then I'd have nowhere to get to Cairns. But yeah, then I got a call from Queensland Rail this morning asking about if I had any dietary requirements for another train I'm going on. And I missed that call and called them back later in the day and said, what was going on with that? And, no, I don't have any dietary requirements. And the guy was like, oh, well, now that you've got me on the phone, is there anything else you'd like? And I said, oh, we'll give it a chance. I probably won't find anything, but looking to book on the Spirit of Queensland from Brisbane to Cairns on the 5th of Friday the 5th of July. And he's like, yeah, look, it's pretty booked out, but I'll see. And he looked and he's like, oh, you're in luck. There is one seat that's just cropped up just before. And so it's like, do you want me to book that one for you? I was like, yes, please. And so he booked that for me. And I was like, oh, yes, thank God. But the funny thing was, he was like, oh, there's a seat available, but it's only a seat. I'm like, yeah, and like, isn't that what I want? He's like, it's only a seat. I said, well, what do you mean by this? Well, it's not a lie flats. It's not one of the rail bed, what they call rail bed sleepers, which is a lie flat seat. And it's like, and there's no meals included in your fare. But you can purchase some on board. it's just a sort of, recliner premium economy seat. I said, oh, yeah, that's what I was after anyway. I wasn't after the expensive lay flat bed. I'm happy to put up with the recliner. I mean, the train goes for like, I think 25 hours, so overnight. But yeah, I was like, I don't really care. I'll put up with it. So booked that, and now I'm all booked, and I don't have to take a coach where there's a train running the same route. So Tim asks, does the Spirit of Queensland train have 4X or Bundy Rum painted on it as its logo? It's just a QR logo, yes. But they do have a bit of yellow in them. So, yeah. And I don't know if they stock 4X or Bundy on the train. I'm not even sure. I don't drink alcohol, so I don't worry about that sort of thing. But yeah, anyone who knows Queensland trains a little bit better than I do they supply alcohol on board, or is it just food? But yeah, so continuing my trip, I'm spending a couple of days in Cairns. One of those days in Cairns, I am going to Kuranda, which is like a rainforest for anyone who doesn't know. And there's like a famous tourist train. Yeah, that'll be cool. That's going to be a little day trip. Then on the Tuesday of the second week, I am going to be taking a coach back down to Townsville. Now, there is the Spirit of Queensland, which runs between Cairns and Townsville, but it does not run in that direction on a Tuesday. Queensland Rail have got some weird thing where the train only runs like, it's either 5 or 6 days a week. But it's really weird days that they don't run, like it's like a Tuesday or a Thursday or something. But it changes depending on which direction you're going. I don't know why they have that. I think they should either commit to a 7-day-a-week service or make their day off a bit more consistent. Hendrik says Queensland Rail is useless. Yeah, I've heard that. At least they exist. At least they exist. Be thankful you're not in South Australia, where they don't. South Australia doesn't have any long distance trains left, apart from, the GAN, the Indian Pacific, and the Overland. But they don't count because they're interstate trains. They're not really intrastate stuff. Yeah. Then, so yeah, bus down to Townsville on Tuesday. I arrive, and then I spend the night in Townsville. Next day, catch the train from Townsville to Mount Isa. That's the furthest inland that I'm going on the trip. That's how I'm going to Mount Isa, which was what I was saying before. Spending a couple of days in Mount Isa, then taking a bus from Mount Isa down to Longreach, spending a full day, but technically I'm arriving in Longreach on the Saturday, leaving on the Monday, but arriving in the late afternoon Saturday, leaving Monday morning. Visiting the Qantas Founders Museum in Longreach, that'll be nice. Then I am going on the Spirit of the Outback from Longreach to Brisbane, and I have come up with a nickname for that train. I haven't heard anyone else call it this, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone else has called it this. The Poor Man's Gan. If you know the Gan, which is the famous train which goes from Adelaide to Darwin and vice versa, it's quite pricey. Ticket prices start at like a few grand, and they've recently, and by recent I mean the past few years, they cut out the just day sitter option. So if you want the cheapest dog fare on the Gan these days, it'll cost you a couple of grand. So it's not within my budget range, unfortunately, not at this stage. And so I choose to go on the Spirit of the Outback instead, which is, you know, same sort of thing, you know, it's the desert. And I get a bed. That's the other thing. So yeah, I've booked myself a single sleeper cabin, which was the more expensive option. You could just get a normal recliner seat. But I thought it was like 400 and something bucks. Hello, Victorian Rail Heritage. Yeah, something like that. And I thought, you know what, seems all right, especially considering meals are included in my fare, and it's like a 28-hour journey, something like that. I thought it's reasonable, and considering it's the last real sleeper train that's in service. Began in the Indian Pacific, they're more tourist orientated than commuter focused. And you could argue that the Spirit of the Outback is touristy focused, no doubt it is, but it also has that commuter aspect, whereas I think Began in the Indian Pacific have completely lost their commuter aspect to them. And yeah, apart from that, in Victoria, the only way you can get oh, hang on. Now, what the fuck am I saying? The XPTs, both the Melbourne and Brisbane ones, they run sleeper trains. Oh. It's still cool. Dining car, though. XPTs don't have a proper sit-up dining car there, and they don't have a club car either. So that's what makes the Spirit of the Outback unique in my mind. And I'm getting to experience all of these trains before they disappear, which the Mount Isa and the Charleville ones, I don't think anyone would be too surprised if they disappeared in the next 5 or 10 years. Anyway, oh yeah, and I'm getting back to Brisbane, meeting up with Les, and then I'm staying with some of his family with him, and then we are getting the XPT back Brisbane to Sydney, staying in Sydney a couple of nights, Sydney to Melbourne XPT. And so that's my 3-week trip to Queensland. And I've wasted my first 18 minutes of my live stream. Oh, it's cool. Let's read some of this comments. Probably alcohol in the dining car. Yeah, it depends. I don't know. I think definitely for the Spirit of the Outback there'd be alcohol, but whether it's there for the others as well, I'm not sure. Because they just have like a buffet type car. Coranda is beautiful. I went on the train up there. It's bloody awesome. Yeah, it looks very nice. I'm looking forward to it. I'll briefly touch on the Savannah Lander. I had the option of going on the Savannah Lander instead of what I'm doing and what I explained, but I thought, what's more likely to be around in the next few years? These long distance Outback Queensland trains or the Savannah Lander? I think the Savannah Lander. And so yeah, and it's I get to see and do a lot more than just the going on the Savannah Lander for a similar price. Have Rolly 4x4 says, have you ever seen the huge iron ore trains in the Pilbara, WA? I've seen photos of them and videos of them. I'd love to go and visit the Pilbara one day. It's definitely on my list. But yeah, those things, those are interesting, especially the Rio Tinto ones that are now driverless. The world's largest automated machining, or something like that. Tim also says, the station in as Townsville is a very nice building, very Victorian. Nice, looking forward to it. How long is the bus trip from Cairns to Townsville? Let me see. It runs from roughly 7:30 a.m. till 1:30 p.m. It's so. What's that? My mind's gone blank. There's 3 hours plus, so like 6 hours. 39. Yeah. That was 6 hours, isn't it? Went to university in Townsville and have photos from Corinda in the 80s showing my age, says Kate Williams. Yeah, nice. I've got a postcard of Corinda on my wall. I know it's not visible, but yeah, Corinda is well, I might make a video when I'm in Corinda. I might do a bit of research about how it came about, because I think it's a bit of an interesting story. It's something like it was never really meant to be a scenic railway. It's sort of similar to Puffin Billy. It was never meant to be a scenic railway, but then it was sort of a popular touristy spot when it was just a regular service, and then it sort of developed into a full-blown tourist train. Good evening, Pat Robertson. Tim says, remember to bring your own pillow. It makes train and bus travel a lot more comfortable. A pair of sunglasses and even a cap in case you get stuck with the sun beaming on you. Yeah, I'm definitely taking my pillow, and I'll be taking some sunnies, but a cap is a good idea. I wasn't really considering that sort of thing. I tend to wear more wide brim hats than caps, but yeah, that's a good idea. Fun trip, happy to hear about it, says Tony Hawkins. Cheers. I'll be filming a video of the whole thing. So yeah, you'll see it on here. I doubt you would see sun this time of year. It's winter. Yeah, mate, it's winter in Victoria, but it ain't winter in Queensland. It's just dry season. So it's sunny. It's very sunny. Beeline Albury service buffet car is a rip-off. Yeah, it is. Same as any Beeline buffet car. Well, yeah, they're all the same. Big difference in Queensland sunrise. It can get very bright in windows. Yeah, that's true. Floyd, what are your thoughts on the standard gauge Albury service being replaced by standard gauge velocities? It's too early to tell, basically, because they're making long distance velocities, and I think I don't know the plans. The government just slaps the name Velocity on any new V-line train, regardless of its actual design. So exactly how much it will share with today's velocities, I'm not sure. It may be okay. The thing that I don't like about Velocity, the big thing in terms of their base platform, is the fact that they have an engine under every carriage. And so that makes it noisy, and the vibrations as well aren't that great. So, yeah, that's not great. I'd rather an XPT style where they've got a loco at each end and it's fairly consistent and they've got carriages. In terms of their seats, well, they're going to have different seats. And if they put in the same sort of seats that they've got in the current N sets, that'd be good. The current Velocities, there's the short distance ones, or I'll say the medium distance ones, because they've already built, but they're not in service, and very short commuter distance ones designed to replace the H sets. But anyway, the Velocity seats are as wide as the first class seats in an N set, but they've got the legroom of an N set economy seat. And they're not even as comfortable as the N set economy seats. But yeah, too early to tell. Basically, I'll have to see when they come out. What camera do you use in your videos? I use a Canon 70D with usually a 10 to 18 millimeter lens. So that's, fairly wide angle. But I also have an 18 to 135, which I use whenever I need a long distance shot. So generally, if it's urbex related, I'm probably not going to be using the 18 to 135. But if I'm doing a train video or something, then it's quite possible that I'm using an 18 to 135. The way you tell is, do I zoom in very far? If so, 18 to 135. If not, if I go out really wide, 10 to 18. It's a really good camera, nice and cheap. Like you can pick up a 70D plus a 10 to 18 lens for probably $600, $700. Maybe even less if you looked hard enough. So it's a very good medium kit that's not super cheap, but it's not super expensive either. The short distance Velocities have arrived. For example, the Brax Marshall Mums and Windvale. Yes, they have arrived. They've been built, but I don't believe they're actually in service yet, unless things have changed. Yeah, tilt train is not exactly fast, just a bit faster than a normal train. Yep, you're right. It's not European HST fast, but it's Australia fast. It still holds the Australian rail speed record. Even at service speed, nothing's faster. Victoria's got as fast, but not faster. Return Railhead says that's a terrible idea. N classes are not even that old yet, and com engines are even older. Metro aren't retiring them until 2040. Yeah. V-line commuters. Here's the funny thing. I love it when they all whinge about, there's, my 1980s rolling stock that always breaks down. Why can't we have newer stuff? And yeah, it's like, you don't know that the H sets, they're from the 1950s. Age doesn't make the difference. I think they should keep the N sets going for a long time, and they will be going for a while longer, but yeah, that's a discussion for another time. Do you attach a mic, says Tony Hawkins? I have a Canon 60D, but I don't think I can use it for vlogging. I have a 10 to 18 and an 8 to 200. Yeah. So far, in none of my videos that I've filmed on this channel, I've attached a microphone. Fogarty Avenue, I purchased a microphone, a joint purchase with Les to have a microphone. And just in recent times, I have got it. In fact, the microphone is just sitting here. Yeah, that's a fluffy wind guard. Jason Belief, or whatever you say, I was talking about long distance V-line trains. They should be happy they even have a rail service. Not sure who you're referring to there. Oh, the V-line commuters, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Locomotive hold is the best type of train, yeah. So in terms of the microphone, yeah, I'm able to attach it. I'm pretty sure the 60D has a microphone jack as well. Just pick up one of these mics. They're pretty good. I think it's brand new between the microphone and the wind guard. It's like $120. They're good, especially for the wind. You want the wind blocking, and man, that makes a huge difference. But we are half an hour into the live stream, and I haven't started talking about what I said I would talk about, which is railway freight operations, past and present. So let's get started. Firstly, what was railway freight operations like back in the 1850s and onwards, the late 19th century? It was very small, and because locomotives weren't that powerful, freight trains were quite small, and it was highly, highly, highly specialized. You had pretty standard stuff like a boxcar. I don't think louver vans were really came about until later. But yeah, you had like just open wagons, very basic stuff. And roads existed, but they were pretty much useless for freight operations. You'd only use it if the railway wasn't available. If the railway was available, you'd use the train any day of the week. And that's important to remember for what I'll say later. Yes, and it was steam loco hauled. The roads were crap. And so, especially in the sort of late 19th century when a lot of new railways were being built, if you go back and look at the parliamentary notes as to like when the railway was being authorized, the reasons that were stated was basically that the roads were impassable for a lot of the time for a lot of railways, and so that's why the railway was built. And they sort of became a bit redundant when the roads became passable for all year round. And so moving into the 20th century, the first half of the 20th century, you start to see the real proliferation of railway freight. And I think it was about the 1940s that it peaked, where, you know, the railways would transport anything and everything you could throw at them. They had stuff for bulk operations like wheat, cement, superphosphate, that was a big one. And yeah, they had lots of branch lines, and their system was the branch lines would feed the main lines, and then the main lines would feed the ports. And yeah, so the other thing about the freight operations was it was all individually packed. So if you wanted to transport, say, potatoes, then you wouldn't just load a bunch of potatoes into boxes and put them in a container or something like that. No. You'd have bags of potatoes and you would load them onto the box van by hand. Same with a lot of other things. even cement in the early days was all bags. And as you can imagine, that's rather inefficient, and it has, you know, its drawbacks in terms of the time. But hey, it worked, and it was fairly fast for its day. You know, stuff would go out essentially on the next available train, and trains were fairly frequent. And yeah, they were on a train. It wouldn't be just destined for one station like it is today. It would be destined for a line, and it'd go and drop off stuff at each and every stage of the line. And so, like the wagons were often arranged such that they could pull into a station, pull into the yard, drop off a couple of freight wagons, and then continue on. And that worked well. And even in some places where there wasn't enough traffic to justify a full passenger train, they'd run what you call a mixed train. So they'd just slap a couple of passenger cars, like one or two would be the max. Yeah, you'd put one on a goods train, and yeah, you'd just travel with the normal goods train, and stuff would be dropped off as you went. But what that also meant was that everything would be fairly jumbled. And so there'd be a lot of sorting, a lot of shunting going on to sort the train out, both at the stations where it was dropping off freight and also picking up freight. And so the place where it all sort of collided was what was called Melbourne Yard. And Melbourne Yard was next to the docks, but they weren't the docks that Melbourne has today. The main ones is what is now known as Docklands. That was where all of Melbourne's shipping traffic went. Where the ports are now, that was a swamp. Literally nothing was there. It was just an empty bit of shitty land that no one really wanted. And so it all culminated in Melbourne Yard, and they were next to the docks. And Melbourne Yard was huge, and I mean huge. You don't realise the sheer scale of Melbourne Yard. To give you an idea, the biggest goods shed, which still exists today, was the number 2 goods shed. And today the shed is chopped in half. What by? By Collins Street. Collins Street was extended into Docklands, and it cut through at the halfway mark of this goods shed. So the goods shed extends. It's sort of if you're at Southern Cross Station, if you take the tram a couple of stops west, you'll find the goods shed. And yeah, so it extended from the bottom of like Flinders Street all the way up to essentially Burke Street. And it had 3, actually I'm not sure about that, but it was one great big shed, and it still exists today. It's now being converted to, I think, a kindergarten and some other random office spaces. But that was just one small part of Melbourne Yard. Like Melbourne Yard, it extended. So Southern Cross Station back in the day was called Spencer Street, if you didn't know that. And so I'll be referring to it as Spencer Street from now on because it's historically accurate. So if you Melbourne Yard essentially extended west from Spencer Street Station all the way to Victoria Docks. Pretty much all of Docklands now, all of what's now Marvel Stadium and more, that was all Melbourne Yard. So it's all filled with tracks. And it extended all the way up to like well into North Melbourne. It was essentially the size of a suburb. It was the size of a suburb, but it was just this gigantic freight yard. And it was split into a few different sections. One was the arrivals yard and one was the departures yard. And so it was the job of the arrivals yard to, it would receive a goods train, and obviously the locomotive would detach and go off to North Melbourne Loco Depot, most likely, back in the day. And then it would be up to the job of the shunters to sort out the train and go like, okay, what is going where? Is there some stuff that's supposed to be heading back out again? Is there some stuff that needs to go on a ship tomorrow? Is there some stuff that needs to go on a ship in a week's time? And in the meantime, you have to like, you know, stuff would go into the wagons would be shunted into the goods shed, and then they'd unload the goods by hand. Even bulk stuff like wheat had to be unloaded by hand. They would literally like get shovels and shovel it out of the wagons. And yeah, everything would be loaded into ships individually by crane, by crane and hand. But point is, it was all individual. And so it's really fantastic if you want, if you don't care about efficiency and you just want the most flexibility. It's awesome flexibility. And actually, if you're a railway fan and you've ever you've ever been on like a heritage tour, and you've seen on a circular or something, or you've heard someone say that they're going to be visiting the arrivals yard, and you're like, where's the arrivals yard? Why is it even called the arrivals yard? It's in North Melbourne, next to North Melbourne Station, and it's called that because it literally was the yard for arrivals, you know, back in the day. Obviously, it's not so much used for that now, but that's what it was. And everything would get sorted out there. But the main thing that I'm getting at is that it was very inefficient. And that was the downfall. It was that, especially like when the roads improved and trucks improved, it was like trucks can now be a serious competitor to trains. And they offer the same flexibility as trains, but without the drawbacks of trains, which is the fact that they're limited by where the tracks go. And so the railways really refused to embrace trucks for many, many years. And I think that was a big contributor to the so-called downfall of the railways, was that they failed to embrace trucks. They failed to embrace efficiency. And it was kind of understandable because, you know, they had all of this stuff all set up for these individual operations. And it was a huge amount of investment, absolutely gigantic. But it all fell to pieces eventually. And yeah, the railways did come to make good use of things like hoppers, where, you know, it's automatic, fairly automated loading with stuff like wheat or cement. Yeah, automated loading and unloading. But yeah, they just didn't make enough use of that. Yeah, and branch lines as well. Branch lines are terribly inefficient, and that's why so many branch lines are closed, because it was just an inefficient route. Yeah, it was great for, you know, accessing these places on the cheap in the early days, but man, we failed as a result. If you take a look at a map of the Victorian railways and you compare the sort of east and the west, especially in the northwest to the southeast, you'll see the northwest had a lot of main lines. They didn't have too many branch lines. They just had a lot of main lines, whereas the southeast had one main line, or okay, two. But the point was it had very few main lines and lots of branch lines. And you look at what's happened today, one main line exists, pretty much all of the branch lines have closed. And so it goes to show you that they were, again, inefficient. It's just the way it is. But the Northwest, however, has fared really well, because not only were they main lines, but their main freight was grain. And man, oh man, do we still have grain trains. Grain trains are getting more popular by the year. So yeah, that's, and you know, so that's the other thing. Freight trains today, they're point to point. They're not stopping all stations. And they're also block trains. You know, they're not. There'll be one train, and it won't be. It won't have a wheat van and a louver van and a box van and a cement wagon and a bit of superphosphate and a cattle wagon. You won't see anything like that today. You'll see block trains, and what I mean by that is there'll be a set of wagons and usually a couple of locomotives that are with that, and that train is, for the most part, one unit. Yes, it can be separated, and it does get separated on the occasion, but for the most part, it stays the same. And yeah, just that's the important thing, is that it stays the same, and so you don't need to do much shunting. And for example, SSR might run a grain train, and one day they might go to Charlton, for example. They'll go to Charlton, they'll go to the silos, they'll fill up with wheat, and they won't stop anywhere else. They'll just come straight back to Melbourne. They'll dump all the wheat, then they'll go back out again, and this time they might head to Witchproof. And they would go out there, load up again, come back. Same sort of thing with intermodal container trains, that sort of thing. They'll go to a place, they'll load up, they'll come to Melbourne, they'll drop off. And you're noticing a common theme here. There isn't much freight. In fact, I don't think there are any regular freight trains that carry goods from Melbourne to the country. I'm sure it could be possible at a push, but it generally doesn't happen. It's usually the country exporting stuff to the ports of Melbourne. And for anything that the country needs to import, trucks are used, because they're a lot better at doing that job, because it's a lot more flexible, and generally stuff that you need to import isn't as predictable. as exports. And so the railways today are doing what the railways does best, which is efficiency. Trucks just cannot compete with the efficiency, the potential efficiency of trains. You know, the train has you know, a couple of locomotives and diesel locomotives. That's the other brilliant thing about diesel locomotives, is that you can join them all up together and you can just have them controlled by the one crew. So you'll generally employ 2 people on a freight train, you know, the driver and the fireman, and they will run the freight train, and they'll be in charge of, I don't know, say 30 or 40 wheat wagons. So that's the equivalent of, you know, say 20 to 80 trucks. So, right, okay, not 80, like, if it's like 40, so it's 40 grain wagons, yeah, so 20 to 40 trucks, depending on if you do double stuff. But the point is that you just can't compete on a cost basis. The drivers, because that's your main cost, is the driver, is the crew. You, for the same, moving the same amount of wheat, containers, whatever, you've got to employ a lot more truck drivers. And if it's a regular route and you've got access to the rail, I think if you're a business, you'd be mad. You'd be mad not to use railways if you're exporting stuff. So, yeah. It does mean that for us rail fans, there isn't that much variety as there used to be. And there isn't as much opportunity and stuff, but hey, it keeps the railways alive. So be thankful. And everything comes down to economics. And that's why railways close. That's why they're kept open. Ultimately, is economics. And make no mistake, freight most of the time keeps railways open. The only time that passengers keep railways open is for very short distance stuff. I think if you eliminated all freight trains in Victoria, you'd get commuter trains to, you know, Geelong, Ballarat, Bendigo, Seymour, Traralgon, and you might get an Albury service, maybe. I don't think you'd get any long distance trains, because what pays the bills on the long distance lines? Not the passengers, it's the freight. It's just the name of the game. And if you look at lines that once they lose the freight, they go downhill. It's just economics. And when a line, you know, a lot of rail fans, they will whinge about the closing of a line, but it's like, if no one's using it, you just can't justify keeping it open. It's just plain and simple. And I see, I think it was the Moulmein line. Technically, that's not a closed line. It's like a, we'll open it if you give us enough notice line. But for all intents and purposes, like, it hasn't seen a train in years and the points are disconnected. So, yeah. That's a line that's basically died off. And I'm afraid that the Portland line will die off, because that hasn't seen a train in ages. But that one's technically open. And the discussion on Portland, that's for another day. So yeah, that's my little conclusion about how freight used to operate. And I guess I'll add one thing. Freight traffic that is no longer. It's a shame that we don't get as much freight variety, but yeah, sometimes flexibility outweighs it, even if there's a lot of it, like cattle, for example. I don't think there's been any reduction in the amount of cattle freight traffic overall, but it's most certainly shifted to trucks, and that's because it's way more flexible. And for cattle, yeah, that's what you need. You need flexibility. And what else? Superphosphate, that used to be a huge one. Farmers still use superphosphate, but again, flexibility outweighs it. Outweighs the efficiency. People are willing to pay more for flexibility. It all goes back to economics. If you're trying to study railways and you don't have a look at economics, you're shooting yourself in the foot. But yeah, all right, time to look through and ask me any. I'll be looking through the comments now and I'll answer any questions. So Hendrik says, hey Floyd, you do a great grandma impression, by the way. Thanks, I guess. Western Victorian Railways, the Portland line needs 2 weeks notice before a train can run on it at this stage. Yeah, that's the first sign of closure. That's a real shame. David, you mean Portland now has main power? Okay. Maybe I should look back a bit. Doesn't have. Oh, so Tony is talking about the 60D. Doesn't have autofocus. Yeah, 60D doesn't have great autofocus. If you're looking to, it does have autofocus for video, I think, but it's just very shit. And so if you are looking to vlog, I'd keep your lenses and I would upgrade. I'd sell your 60D and get yourself a 70D. Get it. If you search on eBay for like excess camera gear, there's an eBay seller called like Excess Camera Gear AU or something like that. That's where I got mine from. And they sell secondhand bodies for like $400 to $500, which can often be a good deal. But shop around and see what you can find. It might also be an option. You might find that there's a 70D kit. Somebody selling a 70D with like an 18 to 55 or something for like, let's just say $550. I'd be tempted to look at purchasing that and just selling the 18 to 55 because you don't need it, and you get a bit of cash back for that. So I don't know how much it'd sell for, maybe $100 if that. Yeah. And so, yeah, I have both my lenses are what you call STM lenses. They are best for video, very smooth focusing because they have stepper motors, which, contrary to their name, don't really work in steps. Yeah, they do, but it's more complicated than that. I do know how a stepper motor works. I'm not going to get into it. Point is, it's smooth. Rolly 4x4 says, I used to know a guy that worked for a refrigerated transport company. They used a trailer rail setup where the trailer's hooked onto the train and the trailer wheels lifted up. Yeah, Victoria used to have like a trailer rail service type thing that was trialled by Freight Australia. Didn't really work out in the end. They also had the RTL one, which is, did they have two? I don't know. They definitely had one. That's worth a little talk about. RTL stands for Road Transferable Locomotive. It basically looks like a truck, like a proper truck, but with high rail capabilities. And so what it basically ended up being not a great truck and not a great locomotive either. But I believe it's being purchased by some maintenance company and they still use it. So, hey. But for mainline use, it failed. Some trains in Victoria still run refrigerated containers, like Pacific National do refrigerated containers, but that's not a trailer setup. Tim says, if the comedy TV series Mork and Mindy was set on a Pacific phosphate mine, Mork's catch cry would have been no. Okay, I don't get the reference, but anyway. Hendrik says, we designed Southern Cross Station. Not sure what you mean by that. Southern Cross Station is, I think, an overall aesthetically nice design. It has its functionality issues, but that can be solved, and that's a discussion for another time. The old Vic-Rail HQ building in Spencer Street is built on the last solid land on the west side of the CBD. The rest, as Floyd said, was all swamp and meandering river. Yeah, that's right. And the Victorian Railways headquarters still exists. You can see it when you're rounding up the bend to get into Southern Cross Station from Flinders Street, or vice versa. Yeah, it's currently part hotel, part apartments. So yeah, if you're a rail enthusiast and you want to stay in a fancy hotel, you can stay in there. The area of his current location was dug out to suit the shipping of the day sailboats. Yeah, that's also something, discussion for another day. Timsky Watson could figure out that I don't know what I'm talking about. Jim says, I've spent many hours looking over old photos taken from the old Vic-Rail admin building as well as the rail line layout. Plans for shunting, sorting raids in Spencer Street. Amazing to see. Yeah, if you look at all those diagrams and photos, yeah, they're really amazing. If you Google something like, well, there's the website Signalling Diagrams and Photos. They're always good. And there's a few other websites as well that have the occasional signalling diagram. You might be able to find something from Melbourne Yard. I've definitely looked at diagrams for parts of it. Yeah. It says, yeah, we have a lot in the archive. We informed you of the current design. Surely by blah, blah, blah. Never mind, it hasn't been quite so. But as I said, they just upgraded a rail crossing near Portland. Oh, interesting. So they still care about it somewhat. Yeah. Oh, I was going to talk about potentially reinstating a few long distance trains, but I think that's a big discussion and that's for another time. Caleb says, amazing how V-Line Pass has thrived in recent years, and also Victoria has the most intact network in the country. Yeah, you're right. Victoria does have a very intact rail network. V-Line Passenger has thrived in recent years, but if you look at what services have thrived and what services haven't, it's the commuter trains have thrived. Geelong, Ballarat, Bendigo, Seymour to Elgin, they've all been the ones that are really thriving because of population growth. And also, like, the velocities, while they're not the best, they've enabled a fairly frequent service. And when you provide a good frequent service, people use it. As long distance feline trains, they've improved it. They've become a little bit more popular. I think Albury has had a bit of attention, but the others, not so much. They hope to do sand train runs back here in a few years ago. Well, Hamilton at least. What do you mean? Do you mean they hope to do it in a few years, or they hoped to do it a few years ago, but then didn't for some reason? I remember hearing some talk about sand trains to Hamilton. Tim says, I was the hotel's maintenance manager and facility manager at the old Vicarale admin buildings. Started there during construction. Fitted new ropes to the original rooftop flagpole. Ah, very interesting. The Public Records Office you would be familiar with, then they have quite a few old records, and I've only really explored their online collection. I know there's some people who visit their offline collection on a fairly regular basis, and man, that thing is deep. It's been many hours in there, many days of your life. Met the building ghosts. I know every inch of the building. Amazing, huge timbers as beams and rafters for the top roof. Floor roof. Interesting. If I was ever to get a inner city apartment, I think I'd like a Victorian Railways headquarters one. But I don't have any plans to get an inner city apartment, put it that way. Tony Hawkins says, are you going to explore any rail here in Sydney when you're here? Yes, I'm going to explore a little bit. I'm only going to have a day because it's going to be coming to the end of my uni holidays and I will be having to get back to uni. But definitely going to be exploring a little bit. Exactly how much, I'll see. I've been offered a place by someone, and I'll be accessing their place by train. But yeah, I don't know how much further I'm going to explore it. I'll have to see. And Sydney, I'm definitely going to be returning to Sydney at some point to explore it properly. I did visit Sydney back in, like, I think last time I went was 2014, something like that. I went on a few trains there, a few ferries, etc. But I was actually I went there to do work experience with my uncle, which was good. He works at like a special effects company. I thought I might like special effects, but in the end I was like, no, not for me. Cool, but not for me. They also upgraded the old yard at Hamilton Station a few years ago for log trains to run to Geelong, but that fell through sadly. Oh man, log trains. Interesting. We haven't seen a log train since the ones at Bairnsdale line closed, what was it, like 15 years ago or so. The Ballarat line is too busy with overgrading and lateness. Yep. We'll see how things improve with the Ballarat line upgrade. It will definitely help things. Honestly, they should never singly... What do you call it when you go from double track to single track, like what the Bendigo line did? Whatever you call it, they shouldn't have done it. They should have kept that double track, and they should get the whole of the Ballarat line to double track as well. And I believe it will happen one day. I suspect Ballarat line will get double track before Bendigo does. And they want to close the Bungaree Loop. I say, why not keep it open? Why not keep it open as a backup? You know, you will have a double track in, or I should say double bidirectional track cutting across that way, but yeah, I still think you should just keep the Bungaree line open. Western Victorian Railways, there has also been talk of reopening the yard at North Portland Station as well for, I think, the wood chips. I'm not sure what the name of that. A lot of talking, not much action, basically. Tony says, okay, cool, hopefully catch up with you sometime. I could show you some cool rail places. Yeah, if I'm in Sydney another time, definitely. These log trains were going to be containerized. Oh, that's interesting. Containerized logging trains. That's interesting. I'm surprised because generally logs are long, and so that's why I use them in the traditional sense. But if they want to cut them up shorter and make them small logs and transport them that way by containers, then yeah, that's good. Les Buckle, cannot answer your phone right now. Tim says, Henrik, I'd love the demolishers' rights to the roofing timbers in the original timber stairwell banisters. Interesting. Well, it's been an hour and 13 minutes now, so does anyone have any other random questions? Because if I don't receive any more in the next minute or two, then I'll end the live stream and give Liz a call. Has anyone got any topic suggestions for the 2 weeks' time live stream? I'm sure I can think of one, but if you've got any suggestions, I'm open to it. I'm just reading the comments. See you, Jason, it seems. Oh, what's this? Oh, hang on. Hendrik says, using Princess Pier recycled timber in St Kilda tram substation at the moment. Construction happening smoothly. Oh, that's interesting. A day trip to Ballarat. What do you mean by that? You're saying I should do a day trip to Ballarat? I've done many day trips to Ballarat, and I'm sure I'll do more in the future. But Ballarat isn't that high on my priority list because I've done it. There are other places that, if I do have a spare day to go of distance. There are other places I would go at this stage. There's Buffalo City text message. All right. Well, there doesn't seem to be any questions or anything. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Well, what's this? Seriously, you should have seen Hamilton in its heyday. It was a fair-sized freight yard. There was around a house size just south of the station, the three-way junction. Yeah, look, many stations used to have a lot of freight, and they don't so much now. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully, I'll remember next time. There's no technical issues this time, thankfully. I think I've got that sorted. But yeah, it's just a matter of me remembering. So, fourth time lucky. See you later. And bye-bye.